Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
Wonderful.
We can hear you.
Welcome to today's seminar, or I should say webinar, on how cities and towns are promoting gender equality during COVID times. I'd like to say a quick word about housekeeping and video conference etiquette before we move on. We kindly ask that you mute yourself when you're not speaking to avoid background noise. Activate your video if the connection permits, because it's so nice to see everybody's faces and reactions during the presentations. Also, if you'd like to ask a question or share one of your experiences following those of our presenters, you click the raise hand button, which is found next to your name in the participant list. You can also ask questions via the chat function, which you can find at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side. So my colleagues will be monitoring the chat and informing me of questions as they come up. I'll be your moderator today. My name is Jamie Just. If you haven't met me before, I'm the Policy Advisor for Gender Equality and Diversity here at the Council of European Municipalities and Regions. If you're active on social media, we also invite you to use the hashtags local equality and 16 days for posts related to today's seminar. I'll now give the floor to the chair and co-chair of the CEMR Standing Committee for Equality, Mr. Emil Broberg, Regional Councillor of Östergötland, Sweden, and Ms. Silvia Baraldi, City Councillor of Legnago, Italy, who will introduce the seminar. Emil, I pass the floor to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Jamie, for helping setting this meeting up. And I will start to thank all the upcoming speakers that are going to participate, and thank you for putting time into this webinar. And it's also nice to see that we are so many attending this webinar today. I looked at the list of participants and could see it's from all over Europe, and it's so nice to see so many familiar faces, but also some new. That's great, and we need these meetings in these times, and today's webinar will focus on how COVID-19 has impacted gender policies at local and regional level in Europe. And with this webinar, the CEMR Standing Committee for Equality aims to explore and share with you the practical case studies of how municipal authorities are taking action to preserve and promote gender equality in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic and its consequences. We are approaching the end of the year and reflecting on a challenging year where we were kept apart physically by the work and collaboration across Europe continued unbroken. The Standing Committee for Equality agreed at the meeting in April during the early phases of the pandemic that it would be necessary to check in at the end of the year how COVID-19 had impacted gender equality at local level. While we can't predict the impacts of the crisis on unpaid care work, women's safety and access to employment and healthcare, it is still hard to determine precise figures what the long-term consequences will look like. We have already noticed some trends that fall along the fault lines of sex. More men than women are dying of infection. Women who are more often employed in care and health services come into direct contact with the virus more frequently than others. What we can say at this stage is that our decisions and actions as local leaders can help shape equitable outcomes and avoid losing the precious ground that has been won in terms of gender equality and women's empowerment. Some countries are building a gender analysis and perspective into their crisis response and recovery. For example, in Sweden, there has been a commission created to study the consequences of all areas of the society and the impact of men and women. It will publish a report on the effects for the elderly on the 15th of December, quite soon this year, another in October next year, and the final report in February 2022, with a special focus on violence and honor-related violence against women and children. Sharing our experiences and the solutions we've developed in the face of this unprecedented crisis is invaluable. It is essential that we, champions of local equality, continue raising awareness and make the case of tackling gender inequalities and their underlying causes is not an additional cost or a box to tick, but a critical component of successful exit from crisis and laying sturdy foundation for the fair and equal society we envision. So some of you may know that this is the last event I will participate. Oh, something happened with my screen. That I will participate in as the chair of the Standing Committee for Equality. From January, our new chair, Silvia Baraldi, will carry forward the work of the committee, and she can count on all the passionate and committed members of the committee going forward, and including me. So I thank you for letting me start up this meeting, and I will give the floor to Silvia.
Thank you very much, Emil. Thank you to Jamie and all the group. During my mandate, our committee will continue to build on the movement you and previous chair have put in place. It is our task to undertake and raise the profile of local action for gender equality as employers, public service providers, planners, and regulators. Additionally, the value of our cooperation came into focus this year when faced with an unparalleled situation. We needed to speak to each other, to encourage one another, and get insight into how to cope with financial strains, protect lives, and coordinate crisis management across levels, all while never forgetting about existing inequalities and acting carefully to not compound them with our response. The European Charter for Equality should be our guiding light. This tool developed by CEMR and its members include the core principle we must follow as local leaders to use our powers and partnership to navigate crisis and recovery in a gender-sensitive way. I hope that in 2021, thanks to all the hard work and sacrifice we are currently going through, that we will be able to come together and celebrate the 15th anniversary of the Charter and start a reflection process in the hopes of refreshing the Charter and these tools to ensure that they serve our communities for another 50 years and more. Today we will hear about experience from across Europe, from Finland to Basque Country, Germany, Poland, and Belgium. They are here to share their stories of how they focused on gender equality and vulnerable populations during the COVID pandemic. Then the perspective was needed most. They are the first to share their good examples with us, and hopefully they can serve as an inspiration to you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Silvia and Emil, for introducing the session and getting us kicked off in the right direction. I'd like to turn now to CEMR Executive Director for European Affairs, Dr. Angelika Poth-Mögele, who will share with us about CEMR's COVID-19 task force.
Yes, thank you very much, Jamie, for organizing this webinar, and second for all the speakers and the members of the Standing Committee and all the participants today. I think we have a very interesting session this afternoon. So I will present you quickly what the CMR has been doing, in particular in its task force on COVID-19. So I will briefly present the task force, its main achievements, and in the end, the next steps, what we are going to do next. So soon after the outbreak of the pandemic this spring in April, we created a task force, a COVID task force. And within very short time, we had about 30 countries and associations from 30 countries that joined this task force. This is really an extraordinary success. Such a high number of participants or of associations we do hardly have in any of our activities. And it shows really the huge interest among our members in addressing the corona crisis together. We launched a survey and to find out what were the main interests of our members, and this is clear. It is sharing information and knowledge. So members want to know how others are dealing with the situation, and they want to exchange on specific issues. So the result of the survey was that members want to be informed and share information about, first, the impact of COVID-19 on local and regional governments and their associations, what they are doing. Second, the measures taken at local, national, and European level. Third, in particular, the impact of COVID-19 on the financial situation and on the institutional setting. And fourth, the international dimension of COVID. As some of you know, that CMR is also quite active in decentralized cooperation. So this is also for us important to also collaborate with our partners outside of Europe. So these issues were addressed and still are addressed in the task force. The task force is meeting on a regular basis. Before the summer break, we met every 2 weeks, and since September, we are meeting once a month. And at each meeting, a specific aspect is discussed, and in the relevant CMR committees and expert groups, also the particular issues are addressed. Like, for example, the impact of COVID-19 on women has been addressed already by the Standing Committee on Equality and the expert group. And today's webinar is also dedicated to this topic. What have we achieved so far? So each week of the task force starts with an introduction, which is either provided by an external speaker, an invited expert, and or also a colleague from a member association. So this is really also good to see that member associations have something to show. They want to show what they are doing in their association, in their countries. So following these introductions, usually we have an exchange between the members, among the members, where everybody can share their experience, their knowledge about the topic that is on the agenda of that day, presenting the situation in their country or the activities of the associations or of local governments. To give you examples, the last meetings addressed the following issues: the economic recovery, which was very important for our members, the localization of the COVID management, which came in particular now with the second wave. The impact of COVID on our society was addressed at the last meeting. And in general, very important always is the question of the impact on the institutional dimension. And we also had one session about the international dimension of COVID-19. During the first wave, that means before the summer break, we launched also several surveys, one on the financial impact, which resulted also in an analysis, which is available on our website, a survey on recovery strategies, surveys on reopening of schools, of kindergartens and nurseries, and one on recycling centers. And recently, the last one we did with the second wave, as I mentioned already, the question how the COVID management is dealt at the local level. Before the summer, the task force drafted key messages. They are also available on our website. The title is COVID-19 from Crisis Management to Resilience. These key messages were adopted by our Executive Bureau in June, and they are structured along the following elements. First, the impact of COVID on local and regional governments in general. Then a particular focus on the devastating impact on the financial situation. Then in the third part, several governance aspects are addressed. For those who are in the European Union, the next chapter is interesting. It is about EU initiatives to address the corona crisis. And then with a forward-looking perspective, the question on exit and recovery strategies. We also address specific impact on vulnerable groups, on women, and on the issue of employment. And at the end, last but not least, a chapter or a part on the international dimension. Furthermore, also the Executive Bureau in June held an exchange with the European Commissioner in charge of cohesion and reforms, Elisa Ferreira, in particular to discuss how local and regional governments can benefit from the EU support measures. What's next? So we have scheduled another meeting in January. This meeting aims to take stock of the management of the crisis. We want to explore the following questions. What lessons have been learned? How do we prepare for emergencies in the future? And how can local and regional governments become more resilient? The objective is also to link the reflections of these questions to a study that we want to conduct on possible changes to devolved responsibilities to local and regional governments since COVID-19. And some of us, or a few as well, participated in the Congress on Local and Regional Authorities event last Monday, which also were addressed by some speakers the question of decentralization or re-centralization, which is a tendency or a trend that has been observed with the management of the COVID crisis in many European countries. The task force is not a permanent group, as the name says it already, and at a certain and appropriate moment it will be dissolved. Hopefully in the not so far future, when the majority of the population will have received the vaccine and we will recover from the pandemic and its impact on our lives. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Angelika, for joining us and for sharing all of this work of the COVID task force. And I'm happy to share the recording of today's webinar with you to disseminate to them so that they can also take some inspiration from the experiences that our members are going to share today. So now we will start with our first group of experiences which relate to care and work-life balance. We'll start with Ms. Sirpa Hertell, City Councillor of Espoo and representative of the Association of Local and Regional Authorities in Finland. Excuse me. I'll share my screen. Sirpa?
You can share it. Yes. First slide you can put it. And meanwhile, I will begin. So good afternoon from Finland and from my home city Espoo, just here nearby Helsinki. And I want to thank you so much to organize this very interesting and very important online seminar of gender equality and COVID. It is important to keep gender equality at the center of political debate also in this COVID situation. And I will speak you from 3 topics. First one is free school lunches in COVID time in Finland. How did we organize it? Then there is discussion support to elderly people. We call it Helsinki Helpline. And thirdly, declaration of family peace. And as you may know, we have free school lunches for all school children in Finland. And when schools were in springtime closed and pupils were studying at home, we wanted to help parents and still offer school lunches. But how did we organize it? There was many ways in different cities, and That's something I want to tell you very shortly, as you can see from the slide. Because there was no national guidelines on how to provide these meals, city councils nationwide adopted different practices and rules. And in Espoo, in my home city, authorities, they were delivering food at various points around the urban area. And parents must first register their children by using our Vilma. It's a Finnish nationwide homeschool communication system. And every day in that time when schools were closed, there was about 14,500 lunches divided every day. And I want to mention that there was also separate food for vegetarians, because it's in very Finland in our city that it's possible to get also vegetarian school lunch. In Vantaa, the city nearby Helsinki and Espoo, the residents can pick up 2 weekly packages of food for their children from the municipal offices on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it was not every day, but they could take the food for all the week. And in Turku, children are entitled to free meals so long as they register by email by 10 a.m. on the preceding day. So they had to give information that they are going to take this lunch so that it's not going to be waste. So this was our school lunches, and it was very important for families to get this free lunch, because maybe the women and mothers and fathers were working at home at the same time, or they were home teachers, or the children were alone. So it was very helpful for families, we think so. And next slide, please. These school lunches was to help families, but then there is also one example from discussion support and shopping assistance to elderly people. It is called Helsinki Helpline. Helsinki Helpline gave all Helsinki residents, if they were over or they are over 70 years, the opportunity to receive discussion support and assistance with shopping and pharmacy help if they need. And by the end of August, the Helsinki Helpline service has got 68,000 calls made or answered. So a lot of assistance was needed. And in April, during the strict coronavirus restrictions, there were up to 500 calls a day. And the Helsinki Helpline operation organized by the city of Helsinki and also involved several civil organizations such as Finnish Red Cross, Helsinki Mission, and the Diakonis Foundation. And if we have 2 minutes time, I have very nice video. And if you, Jamie, think we can watch it now, it's very nice. And it tells how the members of Helsinki Philharmonic Orchestra, who couldn't play because all the concert halls was closed, they could be food delivers to elderly people if they wanted to change their work, and of course get the salary also. So it's very nice short story if we have time for that. If you can get the sound also. Jamie, you have a microphone off.
My apologies. I'm trying to get the sound to share.
If it's possible, but if not, it's.
If not, you can probably share the link in the chat, and then everybody can look at it later.
Yes, it's true. If it's.
Good idea, Angelika.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. I can share the video, but not the sound. I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah, but if you. Yeah, but if you want to watch a video where you can combine helping elderly people and music, and how happy those workers are that they can do something very important also, meanwhile there is a break in their work. Okay, and the third slide, in my third topic, it is about gender-based violence. And it has been increasing during this COVID-19 also in Finland. And we are worried about the situation which has long-term social and financial impacts at local level. And so we made a declaration of family peace. I will tell you something about this declaration, and I think that EU should take more role to support EU countries to decrease gender-based violence at all levels. So this declaration of family peace, it's a campaign to help families with difficult situations during this COVID-19 crisis. And maybe in many countries, in Finland also, we have every year we hear this declaration of Christmas peace. And now we have also this declaration of family peace. And the president of the Republic of Finland was the protector of this campaign, and City of Helsinki was one of the main operators. And from this website, where you can find easily help and all the main operators who work, for example, this with domestic violence and alcohol problems. So it's easy to find help when you need it. And you can, because we will get these slides, you can read later this declaration of family peace, and hope you can get some ideas to your own cities to how to work with this gender-based violence, because it's big problem in these COVID times, especially in Finland. Thank you. I hope you got some ideas from my examples, and please ask more if I can give you more information. I'm happy to tell you. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Sirpa. Our participants will have a chance to ask some questions at the end of the segment. So thank you for that. It's true that the free school lunches can really unload some of the domestic burden that's often taken up by women with the unpaid caring duties. Also for the helpline, people over the age of 70, it's true in the EU, women have about 5 years longer life expectancy and are more often living alone. So with that, let's turn now to Eukene de Miguel, Equality Technician at the Basque Association of Municipalities, who will share with us new ideas coming out of the Basque municipalities on social care models that put life at the center of economy and social organization. Eukene, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon to everybody. It's nice to be here with all of you. I must say I'm going to present very briefly some initiatives that are being implemented in Basque Country, which cannot be considered properly good practices yet, because they are in the very early stages, and due to the pandemic situation, the perspective is very uncertain and changing. So just take them like suggestions or inspiration, just like that. Just three the ideas for the beginning. The pandemic has highlighted the issue of the care system crisis. If this pandemic of COVID-19 has taught us anything, is that the sexual division of labor and time continues to paint a picture in which women are still responsible for the most unpaid care work in the domestic spheres on a daily basis. Also, women are overrepresented in caregiving professional services. In fact, our current care system is unbalanced from a gender perspective based on a family caring unpaid system that falls disproportionately on women. Public care support services are not sufficiently developed and not meet the needs of citizens in such a situation as the pandemic crisis. The pandemic has raised new vulnerabilities, but not new inequalities that were before the crisis. But anyway, the pandemic has revealed or exacerbated vulnerabilities, but the inequalities that cause them are not new. Some needs for care emerge abruptly in this situation, such as combating the isolation of elderly women, dependency situations of women caused by disabilities or sickness, support resources of migrant women in irregular situations, or tackling the extreme vulnerability of women and girls victims of trafficking and sexual exploitation. And a feminist approach on social responsible mother care system gives us an inspiration and a good point to a new approach to that care system crisis. The claim, let's put the lives in the center, makes it really interesting and really meaningful if we let's put the lives of our citizens in the center of the local policies and services. Some local initiatives are exploring new approaches. Several municipalities are trying to explore new ways of approaching the social organization of care. These are processes that have just begun and are still testing on a terrain full of uncertainties. Two examples, among others, the municipality of Hernani in Gipuzkoa. It is a municipality near to San Sebastian with more than 20,000 inhabitants, with a significant immigrant population settled in town. The local government has a deep-rooted dynamic of citizen participation in the annual design of budgets, among other initiatives. In the context of the pandemic, they have launched an initiative to analyze and reflect on how care is organized locally, with the aim of redesigning the local organization of providing care from the feminist approach to public care system. They are organizing kind of Hernani care table in which different municipal departments and feminist and women local groups, as well as citizen organizations, take part. They are starting with this initiative. A quite similar example we can find in another municipality, in Amurrio, which is the main municipality of the rural region of Araba. It has more than 10,000 inhabitants and has a lively municipality and is municipality life with a lot of commercial and associative activity. Just before the pandemic, they started a process of training and analysis the care from a perspective of feminist economics. Local technicians, as well as the mayors and councillors responsible for the different municipal areas, equality, social services, elderly and youth, are learning to change the focus from the services provision to the needs of the citizens. From EUDEL as well, from our association, we have promoted some initiatives in this area. During the first stages of the pandemic, the Executive Bureau of EUDEL approved and disseminated the recommendation to the municipalities to share the budgets for equality. Amongst recommendations, emphasis was placed on not losing sight of the gender perspective in all the support measures and initiatives promoted by the local councils to tackle the negative effects of the pandemic. Also, from Basque Escola Networks, which is a project for the empowerment and participation of women in local politics, some elected women representatives are exploring alliances between local elected women and other women towards a social pact of caring from feminist perspective. The president in the previous legislature was made possible to develop an analysis of how sexual division of the uses of time affects women and men inequally, and the possibilities and conditions for exercising the responsibilities in local politics. Commission of Networks and Alliances for Equality has been created in this legislature to deepen the reflections on these issues. The objective of this commission is to reflect on and make proposals on the issue of care, because the women elected representatives want to analyze and reflect on what has happened and what to do collectively by tackling this situation, exploring alliances with other women groups to share reflections, experiences, and proposals to take back to our municipality, training, identifying allies, significant conversations and relations, meeting with partners, and so on. And these are our tiny initiatives at the beginning, but we are really feel happy to share them with you in case it helps to someone. Thank you very much.
Eukene, thank you. And normally we were going to take a first round of questions now, but we're actually 10 minutes late. So I do propose that we move on to the next section, which is dedicated to response to the shadow pandemic of domestic violence. And I would ask the speakers to adapt slightly your presentations to go a little bit more quickly. That way we can have time for exchange and questions and answers with the participants afterwards. So now we move on to Ms. Gabby Wenner. She's head of the Women's Department in the city of Frankfurt. She's going to share with us several tools and practices that her department has been carrying out in order to provide girls and young women with advice, placements in shelters, and public awareness raising. Gabby, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. I'm glad to be with you, to see you all, and to have an exchange with you, and I will try to do it more quickly. So first, I want to tell you about our online counseling for girls and young women. It's supported by an NGO, which we support, and you can move on the next slide. So they and the next one, I just go more quickly. You can read this later. So we developed this a few years ago, and now it's really important to have this because it's an online counseling which aims on empowerment, awareness raising. They create a service, and they have an anonymous counseling and an anonymous atmosphere where girls feel free to speak about their concerns with great openness. You can do this. The next. This is the website. This is how it looks like, and it has different forums. Next, please. There's an open forum where you can come in contact with each other. You have a single chat. You have the online counseling. You have a login area where it's called My Zone, and the most important area is the safe area, where the girls and young women can get anonymous advice from the experts. And then we have an info area, and on each side there's the fast way out button if somebody gets into your room and you don't want him or her to see what you are looking at. Next, please. The most frequented page is the safe area. And there the topics are sexual harassment, nightmares, sexism, self-harming behavior, depression, drug abuse, trans outing, and so on. And we can say that the online counseling has another quality than regular forms of counseling because girls who have experienced massive violence wouldn't use a face-to-face counseling at the first time. So they feel more safe, they can control what they are saying and when they are saying this and for how long. And it enables them to talk about their bad experiences. The next, please. So I only have figures from 2018. We had 190 users, 50% under the age of 18, more than 2,000 consulting contacts, and the main focus is, as I said, the safe area. And it's also offered in different languages like French, Arabic, and Turkish, and also suitable for visually impaired users. You can take a look at the web page if you want to have your own. Yeah, you can just look at it to get more information. And nowadays it's very helpful that we have this experience, because a lot of other device centers are asking the experts from FEM, how do you do the online counseling, and what do we have to take care of? So they give a lot of advice to other counseling centers also. So the next, what I want to talk about, so next page, please. Yes, it's the emergency places for women's shelters. So when the crisis started, we first found an interim solution, because we have a lot of missing apartments that you can pay. So we don't have enough apartments in Frankfurt, and so we found this solution that women who are staying at the women's shelters, although they could go and live at their own apartment, but they cannot find an apartment which they can pay, they now have the opportunity to move to an accommodation, and they still get follow-up care. So other women who are more in need to move into the women's shelters, they can use the place there and have intensive care. And also we have the opportunity to expand the capacities for first-time admissions. So the women's shelters, they can give a call to the social service department, and they have agreed to provide additional emergency capacities if they are needed. In Frankfurt, we have the situation that these capacities up to now, they were not needed, but this doesn't mean that the violence is not increasing. It only means that the women don't leave their homes yet. So, but the capacities are there if they are needed. And the next project I want to talk about is we had 2 awareness raising campaigns. When the crisis started, we were thinking how we can reach the women who suffer from domestic violence. So we made posters which say if you suffer from the domestic violence, you can call different advice centers. There's a telephone number and the websites. And it also says what is happening if you call the police. You can always call the police, but a lot of people are afraid to do so. So we try to provide some information and some websites where they can see how things work. And the next campaign we developed with young girls, because they told us when the first lockdown was there were almost no people in the streets, but a lot of homeless and drunk men, and they were catcalling them, and they told us, so we developed some posters with them, and at the next chart you can see them. It's in German, but I can translate. It says, "Save your stupid sayings. Stop the insults. Stop touching me, and don't make yourself so big, boys." So these they were all over Frankfurt to see at the, I don't know, Litfaßsäulen. And we also had some advice and helplines and on the website, which is also there. So the girls, they were invited to work together with us to prepare these posters. So it's their work also, and they can find solutions and help at the website. So these were the 3 things from Frankfurt so far. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Gabby. A lot of interesting material and in a very condensed format. Thank you so much. So next we'll hear from another member of our Standing Committee for Equality, Ms. Marta Mazurek, who is City Councillor of Poznan, Poland, who will speak to us about the Safe Place project and the Point of Intimate Care service. I will activate the screen share, and Marta, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's great honor for me to have my first contribution as formally the member of the Standing Committee, for which I'm thanking both the Association of Polish Cities for recommending me and the CEMR for accepting me. I would like to talk about a few solutions which were adopted, launched, or introduced to tackle domestic violence, of course, gender-based violence in the city of Poznan, but one solution also was regional for the Wielkopolska region. So, first of all, Poznan reacted quickly to the situation. We took seriously reports and data on increasing domestic violence, which came from China and Canada, and which came from European countries and cities which were struck by lockdown prior to Poland. We saw that the dire straits, which was created by the COVID-19 epidemic, could be a challenge. Yes? But also, it could be could be an opportunity to strengthen the sphere of activities and services which are meant to help victims of domestic violence, but also to boost cooperation of institutions and organizations which work in the field of supporting victims of violence, as well as spread information and raise awareness about situations of violence, what are forms of violence, and where to turn for professional assistance and help. So what we did is, you can see on the first slide, thank you, we improved and strengthened institutions that are funded from municipal budget, such as the First Contact. It is a helpline, crisis intervention point. It offers professional support and assistance in terms of procedures, legal, psychological, and pedagogical consultation, counseling, and help. We launched a city website, Poznan Against Violence. On this website, you can find all information, contacts, and description of the nature of the support that is provided in the city, both by the institutions and by organizations. But also it contains educational materials about forms of violence and what to do, sort of emergency exit plan, we could say. All information contained there is available in Polish, English, and Ukrainian, since we have quite a few people from abroad living in Poznan as well. The next thing that we did is, thank you, we tracked information on the solutions which were implemented in other European cities, such as Brussels and Paris. They inspired us to launch a project called Safe Place. It's a hostel. We started it as early as April and finished when the lockdown ended, so we finished in June. 18 people found shelter there, so it's quite a few, including 4 children. Safe Place was an emergency placement hostel. It was run by an organization because the address was never to be revealed to the public. Therefore, it had to be carried out by an NGO to secure the well-being of people who were sheltered on the premises. Success of the hostel was predicated upon a large number of things, you could say, but the key one was tight and reliable cooperation among and between a number of institutions, such as the Municipal Family Support Center, Municipal Crisis Intervention Center, Municipal Police, of course, and Department of Health and Education as well. Cooperation turned out to be the biggest positive outcome for the future for us and a good practice. The Safe Place hostel offered what you can see. It was meant for people to stay like 3 days on average. Some people stayed longer, some people stayed only 2 days before they make up their mind whether they want to go to a different facility. The next, of course, this project, it was a pilot project. It is continued, but in a little bit different form with a municipal institution. We're going to assess the results at the end of the year. And of course, we have no official lockdown anymore. The next thing, if I may ask, the first in Poland, financed by the municipality Intimate Healthcare Point, offers free round-the-clock gynecological care services. It was launched by the city of Pozna, and it is sponsored from the local budget as a response to the introduction of so-called conscious clause, which you may be familiar with. That is conscientious objection for medical doctors, which has been, well, in action in Poland since 2015, and which turned out to be limiting sexual and reproductive health rights of women especially, and turned out to have excluded whole areas of Poland from access to reproductive health care. I mean, like all the standards. So this point of intimate health care has been operating in Poznan since November 2018. On average, it gives services to 6,000 people a year, both women, predominantly women, but also men, offers all medical consultations and counseling concerning sexually transmitted infection, intimate hygiene, natural, mechanical, and pharmacological contraception, diagnosis and emergency medical assistance in the cases of injuries, inflammation. It's responsible, or rather thanks to it, we have, let's say, a bigger ratio of diagnosing people with STDs in an early stage. Also, this point was opened or was launched in order to provide health and intimate healthcare services in line with the patient's interest. And during the 2 months of the lockdown in spring, doctors from this place helped over 300 women, and they issued several dozen prescriptions for emergency contraception, from what I know, but of course the information is not like made public. A few victims of rape were also found, also help there, also psychological help. This solution that is that Poznan is proud of received a national recognition, and we earned a Healthy Local Government Prize for 2018. And finally, the last solution, the last project that was launched specifically for the time of lockdown to assist people who might be in a situation of violence, domestic violence, was the regional project. It was called Wielkopolska Helpline. It was an emergency helpline which received over 400 calls during its operation, which means it was like a double number of the usual number of emergency calls. The observations that I asked for the people who worked with this helpline was that the number of cases of domestic violence during the coronavirus lockdown was rising rapidly. And we all know the reasons. What is important, the institutions and services that so far intervened and helped limited their functioning due to the epidemic. And standard measures of support and assistance were significantly reduced. In small towns, because I'm talking about a regional helpline, in small towns and villages, help in situations of violence is off limit. There is only usually one place in a town or village where you can turn for help. But people who work there are sometimes your neighbors. And if you're a victim of violence, you are unwilling to go there for a number of reasons. First of all, shame and stigma, because it's still shame and stigma attached to the victims of domestic violence instead of the perpetrators. Many people for the first time turned for professional help and advice. And that is, I think, the biggest positive outcome of this helpline, which is hopefully to be relaunched next year, because we noticed that the let's say the impact was so positive and so big. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marta, and congratulations on all of these initiatives that surely make the difference in young women's lives during these difficult times. So let's pass now to Ms. Siham Hadiwi, who's the Equality Alderwoman of Schaerbeek Municipality here in Brussels. Siham, it's to you, and I apologize for asking to make the intervention a little quicker than planned. That way we can take a few questions from the audience.
I understand. I will try my best. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Okay, I will try to go to the point. In our municipality of Schaerbeek, which counts 135,000 of citizens, we have created an Istanbul Convention Istanbul Convention, which it's the Convention of the Council of Europe on preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence. In our Istanbul Convention work group, we are working on the content of the convention, which has been divided based on the competencies of our municipality to be really concrete. For example, education, culture, environment, housing, sustainability, etc. The way we are organizing our Istanbul work group aims to involve the mayor and the 10 alderwomen and aldermen in our municipality, each within the range of their own competencies and responsibilities. So me, I'm in charge of doing the coordination and make sure that every alderman and alderwoman follows every topics, which is not really easy, but we're trying our best. I won't go in details into all the competencies that are involved in our working scope, because it will take a lot of time, and I understand that we don't have this time, so you're welcome to ask me questions later. But I want to focus on the housing topic, which is very important, because I don't know which of the intervenant talked about the fact that the violence domestic are rising during this COVID, and in Brussels this is like terrible, but I think it's the same everywhere. So voilà, we are trying to work on this very important topic. This focus group is an extended work group, including some services of our administration, which is in the first line. We thought it's important to involve them too. Local police force, the representatives of the local community, and also, and this is very important, the civil association, because they are really like the people who are working with the persons. So voilà. So civil association who working on who are involved, either in housing matters, but also in women organizations. And this collective approach is very important and allows us to have an efficient network and to develop appropriate actions. I want to talk about two really concrete actions of this Istanbul Convention work group. First is the first one concerned a cooperation between the social housing and also an organization who's supporting women victims of domestic violence. And thanks to this cooperation, women and their kids who are supported by this organization will have priority when an apartment becomes available within, of course, the housing possibilities of the social housing company. It was important because in Brussels, we also have a hostel that one of our minister used, but it's super full. I mean, it's always really complicated to have a place. So this is a real emergency. The second example is about these emergency places. So it concerns the Oasis network, which is an initiative involving citizens who are willing to welcome in emergency at their place on a temporary basis women who are victims of domestic violence. Of course, it has to be followed by the organization. They are like having formation, and also not everybody can welcome. So if, for example, you have an empty place and you say, I want to help because it's empty, and here in Skarbik we have a lot of old houses, really, really large, and so there is place when people want to involve themselves. So this organization provides formation and also a social support, because it's sometimes situations are really difficult, so you have to be ready. So that's why not everybody can, but a lot of people can. And this weekend, for example, I could experience myself the power of such network. I don't know if I can, but I think it's important to also put names, because beyond statistics, beyond numbers, there are like people. I mean, it's really important. I'm still, I'm happy because I got a good news just an hour before this meeting, so I want to share with you. So it's about Fatima and her like 4 children. They come to me and searching for a place. Thanks to this, in 4 days, so they stay safe for two. Really happy, because I was a little bit afraid that I couldn't find a solution. Of course, it's not enough. There is a lot of Fatimas in this world, unfortunately, but voilà, we are trying our best. Thank you for listening to me, and if you have questions, don't hesitate. Thank you.
Thank you, Siham, and really happy that there was a good result for Fatima, and that you're being a champion for your community, like so many of the leaders in this discussion today. Thank you so much. So I wrote that you could write in the chat the questions or comments. Haven't seen any hands raised yet. So if there aren't questions or comments, I think that Silvia Baraldi did want to share a little bit about the anti-violence center that she established in Legnago at the time when she was deputy mayor, which ended up providing vital support services for victims during the COVID-related isolation and lockdown. So I look again. Yes, Silvia, if you'd like to share with us about the center.
Okay, thank you. As mentioned, the Anti-Violence Center was open during my mandate as deputy mayor, and is the only one that was financed by the region Veneto in the 7 Venetians provinces. It's a team of volunteers, educators, psychologists, and lawyers provide an immediate response to abused women who can contact a 24-hour number for help. It's a free service aimed at all women and their children, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, language, culture, religion, and the economic situation, and offer telephone listening, psychological listening, welcome in a protected space, help in regarding autonomy, legal assistance, work orientation, and mutual help groups. All the professionals of the center are in network with the institution that support of women survivors of violence. The center works in cooperation with the social services, police, and courts. In 2018, the year of the opening the Anti-Violence Center, the municipalities that joined the network were 8. Currently, there are 22 municipalities. In the first half of 2020, the Anti-Violence Center registered 21 new cases. But during the lockdown period last spring, however, calls dropped because asking for help was difficult, as was getting away from the uncomfortable situation. The current number of the new cases arrived at the center is 42 women. In general, in Italy, from March to June, the number of requests for help doubled compared to the same period of 2019. The most significant growth that has characterized this month concerned domestic violence. In 2019, 2,251 people had called to report violence at home, while in 2020, 5,016 people did so. Most of the violence takes place at home, at the hands of the partners. As for femicides, the Italian situation in 2020 was truly dramatic. A woman every 3 days. These are the numbers of women killed in the first 10 months of 2020. And now we have a lot of data that confirms the fears. For this reason, we cannot let our guard down, and municipalities have a duty to implement these kind of services. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvia. I couldn't agree more, especially with your last statement. It's really sickening what you share about one woman being murdered every 3 days. So yes, clearly, home is not always a safe place for everyone, especially during COVID. And I think that all of our speakers in this last section have really made good examples of how we can provide support for survivors and victims, even if sometimes the context is changing from one country to the other, where one country might see multiplication of requests for aid, others might see the inverse. But that doesn't mean that the need isn't there. It's just, it's harder to maybe reach out when you're at home with the perpetrator. So with that, thank you so much for staying with us, for all of your valuable contributions. I'd like to give the floor to Emil to conclude the session. Yes, I still no comments in the chat, so Emil, please.
Oh, thank you, Jamie, and thank you everyone for participating, and a special big thanks to you who shared your experiences and good examples of what has been done during this year, and I think this is so important for us to share knowledge and share experience so we can improve all over Europe in all our societies. I think I know we're running out of time. We are going over time, so I'll keep it short. But it is important that we at the local and regional level stand strong in every times, but especially these challenging times, in being promoting gender equality in all aspects and all areas, and especially those who Silvia and others talked about when it comes down to actually protecting lives. We are in that case in many cases in the front line in actually saving women from domestic violence, and it's our of course duty and obligation to do that. So I hope this was an inspiring moment for us all. It was for me, and I would just want to say some short words before we're quitting. That it wasn't just this meeting that was inspiring for me. It has been very inspiring to have been the chair for the committee for over 2 years now. In the beginning, I didn't really know what to expect, and I didn't really know what was expected of me. But I would say I've been taken care of by Jamie, who has been an excellent support for me during these years. And all you who have worked with Jamie knows how competent and how great she is as a person to work with. So it has been a real pleasure. And I also, my time as a chair wouldn't have been possible without Anna either. Anna Ulveson from Sala in Sweden. She has been extraordinary for me to have in this work, because I have worked in politics for a long time, over 25 years now, but Anna has shown that she has a lot of knowledge and experience, and she also has been very patient with me when I'm not that fast in answering my messages and so on. So I really a big thank to Anna, who has made this time of share even better. And I think during this year, so we have also made some big progress within the committee. We have invested quite a lot of time in trying to put the work of gender equality and the importance of the local and regional levels in the center of this discussion. We are trying to impact the UN organization. We are trying to impact the EU institutions, and I think that we are seeing actually some progress, and I'm looking forward to continue the work within the committee, because I'm not leaving, and I know that Silvia is gonna make a good work, and I feel very satisfied to have see that the next chair is having great plans for us in the future. So I should also stop saying it's that this year with the COVID, it has been, in the beginning it felt like it's going to be a year that we lost within the committee, but I think actually while we have these kind of meetings which we have implemented, I think actually we have been strengthening the work of the committee. I'm longing to see you all in real life, but to have these meetings as a complement, I think it's really good, because it makes it possible to see each other more often, and we can also see that the participation is much more higher, because it's easier to have a connect by link than fly to Brussels. So I think all the bad things that happened this year for the committee, some things actually has been really good, and so I'm not that good at these speeches, but I'm thank you everyone. It's been real fun.